Hi everyone, this is Dara, YouthMappers Communications Specialist again. We'll get started in just a couple of minutes and I'll give a short intro. If you will, please go ahead and put in the chat what country you're calling in from, or if you're studying, where you're from. It would be great to see where everyone's calling in from. And I'll go ahead and share just a little bit about YouthMappers. If you aren't familiar with it, YouthMappers is an international network of university-led student mapping clubs, and the focus of the organization is mapping for resiliency. There are 219 chapters in 50 countries around the world. And if you'd like to learn more about YouthMappers, please visit youthmappers.org, and we'll put that web address in the chat here in a few minutes. Just a couple of housekeeping things. The session will be recorded and posted on our YouTube page, YouthMappers YouTube. So if you would, if you don't want to be on camera, don't share your camera, and then we will also email you the link once the video is posted, and it will be posted on our social media. So you'll find out if you want to share it with the rest of your network when the video of this session is available. Please keep your microphones off while you are in the session. There will be a question and answer portion at the end of the session, and at that point we'll allow you to speak. Once you're done asking your question, if you would please turn off your microphone. If you aren't able to turn on your microphone, just go ahead and pose your question in the chat, and I will read those questions aloud. So without further ado, we owe Alex Orenstein a huge thank you. This is his second presentation presenting for YouthMappers. And to give you a little bit of an intro of who Alex is and his background, since he'll be presenting on Sentinel Hub EO Browser. He is a freelance data scientist and geographer currently based in Dakar, Senegal. And for 10 years, he's worked for NGOs, UN agencies, governments, and political campaigns in 11 different countries. His most current project is STAMP, which stands for Sustainable Technology Adaptation for Malayan Pastoralists. And you can learn more about his project on YouthMappers YouTube, except know that that presentation is in French. So without further ado, Alex, go ahead and take it away, and I will stop screen sharing now and you can present. Thanks so much for joining, everyone.
Dara, thank you so much for that introduction. I really appreciate it. I'm just doing the screen share now. I think you can all see this.
Yes, we can, Alex.
Yes. Excellent, great. So yes, thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate to see this turnout. Yeah, so as Dara explained, I am a data scientist. I'm currently based in Senegal. Mostly I work on remote sensing. And I really want to talk today about this application suite called Sentinel Hub. Some of you might actually be familiar with it already. And in particular, we're going to talk about a piece of software called the EO Browser. Now, the EO Browser basically allows us to visualize satellite imagery really easily through point and click without having to do coding or to download software. It's a remarkable piece of software, and it's got a very easy learning curve. In fact, I estimate that this walkthrough isn't going to take us more than 20 minutes, which will leave us a lot of time for question and answers. And so even if you don't have a background in GIS or have never worked with satellite imagery before, you can get up and running with this software pretty easily. I've got my contact information here. If you want to find me on Twitter, I'm at Oren_SA, and my email is info@orensteingis.com. Any questions you have, please don't hesitate. I love talking about this stuff, so if you have any questions about what you're seeing in this webinar today, don't hesitate to reach out. So first, before we do anything, it's important to create an account with Sentinel Hub. Now, Sentinel Hub is free, so it won't cost you anything to create an account. You just need to use an email address. You can use the software, you can use the website without it, but it really helps if you create an account because there's some advanced features we're going to be working with today that require an account. So if you can, just Google Sentinel Hub EO Browser, and from there, sign up for an account. So the goal of today is we're going to use Sentinel II imagery to do three things. One is we're going to visualize large-scale changes in construction growth. So we're going to basically look at a town, and we're going to see how it's changed over the past 3 years using satellite imagery. Next, we're going to chart vegetation growth in an agricultural zone. So we're going to look specifically at a parcel and see how vegetation growth has changed over the years. And the last is we're going to visualize the seasonal changes in surface water. So specifically what that means is we're going to look at a river bank between the wet season and the dry season, and we're going to see how it's changed. And then we're going to have a Q&A. For those of you who aren't familiar with Sentinel II, it's an Earth observation satellite operated by the European Space Agency. What's remarkable about this satellite is it offers free imagery at 10-meter resolution across the planet. So this is quite high resolution and really well suited for land cover, water, agriculture, vegetation monitoring, forestry. It's really quite well adapted to these sorts of things. And you can get, with relative frequency, you can get images of the entire planet. Sentinel Hub is it's a suite of cloud-based tools to process Earth observation imagery. Mostly, it's known for being used to process Sentinel II images, but it has a variety of satellites that you can look at, and as we'll see when we start working on it. This is operated by Synergize Labs in Slovenia. I don't work for Synergize. I'm just a big fan of the software, and I've been using it for a few years now. From its website, it says, EO Browser makes it possible to browse and compare full resolution images from all the data sources we provide. You simply go to your area of interest, select your desired time rate and cloud coverage, and inspect the resulting data in the browser. Try out different visualizations or make your own, download high resolution images, and create time lapses. So you have an idea of what you can do with this. So without further ado, let's actually begin. Let's go into this and let's see what we can do. Now, first thing we should do is to get, oh, that's not what we want, is to just get the Sentinel Hub EO browser. So we start by Googling Sentinel Hub EO browser. And it's the first link that comes up. So it's asking us to log in. You don't need to log in, but I'm going to. I've already logged in before, so as you can see, it's already saved my credentials. And here we are. So it's a standard OpenStreetMap background, and we have a panel here that allows us to select imagery. So we are going to we're going to do this right now. We're going to look at some imagery for Senegal. I chose Senegal because it's where I happen to be right now. So I have a little bit of a bias. Here we are. In particular, what we're going to do with our first exercise is we're going to look at Diamniadio, which is the new administrative center of the country. And it's been built quite recently. So we're going to use the EO browser to show how the growth of this new administrative city has changed over a few years. So here we have a variety of different satellites: Sentinel-1, Sentinel-2, Sentinel-3, Landsat, MODIS, ProbaV. I'm sure many of you are familiar with at least a few of these satellites. But we're going to just focus on Sentinel-2 today. So it's already checked. And we want the time range. So let's say I want to see the most recent possible images. I select down here. Let's just say I want to see what satellite imagery of this area is available from the past week. So we see a number of options. This is from the 14th, so from yesterday. Let's try this one. Let's see what it looked like yesterday. So you can click here and it gives us the larger swath of what the satellite was able to capture. So I visualize this. Now, my internet is not spectacular today, so there's a good chance that we might be a little slow. I don't know if you can see that, but you can see the progress bar inching along. And here we have it. This is the image taken yesterday by the Sentinel II satellite. So for those of you who are in West Africa right now, you probably know we're in the Sahelian rainy season. We're in the rainy season right now. So a lot of the images we're going to get for this period are going to be very cloudy, as this one is. So while it's nice to have an image from yesterday, in our current context, having it really cloudy isn't going to help us very much. So if we want a clear image of Gemini Joe, we have to go back in time a little bit. So I'm thinking, let's try this again. Back to search. And let's set a new time range. Let's say April. You can get pretty clear images in April. It's the dry season. So yeah, let's try within this 3-day window of April. See what we can get. All right, now that is clearer. There we go. So this is pretty cool. We can see right now a pretty clear image. There's no clouds. You can also filter if you want to do the search. I'll show you afterwards how you can filter for cloud-free images. When you do a search, you can have it so that cloudy images don't appear. But here we see pretty clear image. This is Gemini Joe as of April 2020. So here on the left, we see different types of treatments that we can give the image. This is true color. For those of you unfamiliar with concepts like true color, false color, NDVI, I'll give a very brief explanation, but these are things that probably would be best researched. Luckily, Sentinel Hub gives an explanation for each of the bands. So this is, as it explains, a good representation of the Earth as humans would see it naturally. We can then also try doing false color. And as it says here, false color composite uses near-infrared red and green bands. Is very popular. It's most commonly used to assess plant density and health. Cities and exposed ground are gray or tan. Water appears blue or black. So using the false color setting is a nice way to get certain contrasts. So we can switch between true color. Oh no, it's going to take, oh, there it is. True color and false color relatively easily. We also have the option of NDVI. NDVI is quite commonly used to measure agricultural production. Actually just to measure vegetation growth. So in this case, dark green areas are with heavy vegetation and the lighter ones don't. So as you can see, roads here are coming out quite light, and these are the outlines very clearly of farms. So this allows us to isolate farms very easily. So again, what's nice about this, what's nice about Sentinel Hub is these settings are sort of pre-built into it, and it doesn't really require a lot of coding or advanced knowledge of GIS. Basically, you can just plug in the area you're looking for and play around. So let's do a false color image, and what I'd like to do is I'd like to see how Gemini Joe looks now and how it looked, let's say 3 years ago. So they have a function called compare. What we're going to do is we're going to add it to compare. Compare will allow us to go between two images. It's very useful for time series. So I'm going to do another search. I'm going to search, let's just say April 2017. I know that Sentinel imagery goes back. Let's say between, same period, right? Let's say between April 3rd and April 10th. Advanced search, I'm going to reduce the cloud coverage. So it has an automatic cloud detector. So I'm going to say no more than 20% of the image can be covered by clouds. And here we go, another beautifully clear image available on the 8th of April, 2017. We're going to switch to false color again. So here we are. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add this as well to compare. So we see in compare we have 2. Now here at the front I have the, on top I have the older image from 2017, and below I have the image from 2020. Now I can use this split position to change. So this is 2020, this is 2017. So you can really see how the city's grown. If you look just at around Georeferencing, if you look at the south, if you look at the southern part here, where in 2017 you didn't really have a whole lot of buildings, but then we can see how it's quite developed. As well, the area to the north of Georeferencing, where we have a lot of new buildings that have been put up. You can see the changes. So this is a really good way to look at changes in urban growth. Again, very simple. Managed to be done in a few minutes. I'll try to go over to see if we can find the new airport. Here we have you can see how the airport's changed. This was the airport in 2017. This is the airport now. So it gives you a really nice way to see changes. So that was the first presentation that I wanted to show you, was how to use the true color how to do a compare of 2 different time periods. So we're going to do something else now. We are now going to look at vegetation growth. So I'm going to move the map a little bit north to Risartol, which is a town in northern Senegal, which has a lot of agricultural production. So we're going to do another search, and this time I'm going to look at, again, similar, 2020. Let's say look for a clear image between March 28th and, let's just say, April 2nd. Oh, sorry, I've got to change that to 2020. Here we are. And let's see what we can come up with. I made a mistake. I did 2017 to 2020. You've always got to be careful with that. This is the part where if you're watching on YouTube, you should fast forward through. Here we go. Looking for a full image. Let's see what this one looks like. Okay. So we've got a true color image here, and you can start to come around, and you can see the large plots of cultivation here. A big part of this is sugarcane. A lot of sugar is grown in this area. And then we have rice fields here to the north on the Mauritanian side. So let's try the NDVI. the NDVI really comes out quite clearly in these areas. You can really see where the cultivation is happening. And one of the really great things about Sentinel Hub is it's not just for visualization, but you can actually perform a bit of analysis with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw a polygon using this function here around one of these plots. Let's say around this one, right here, just to give an example. So here I've drawn this square right here over this plot. And what I want to do now is I'm going to make a chart to see how production has changed. So what is the NDVI readout for this area? So we're going to click here for the last 2 years to see how has NDVI, or in this case vegetation, changed over the past 2 years for this specific plot. Again, my internet's not the fastest, so it's taking a little bit to load. But here we are. Here we've got a time series. Now, it's a bit all over the place. It's a bit of a roller coaster because we have a lot of cloud images in there as well. So you've got values close to 0, right? That usually means there was a cloud over it. But we can do a cloud filter here. So we can say, okay, perform the NDVI analysis for this spot, but only for the dates where the clouds coverage on that image was below a certain threshold. So now I'm going to bring it down to, let's just say, if I bring it down to 0, or the only for cloud-free images, let's say maybe 5%. Here we get an idea of the vegetation changes. So we can see over the past 2 years, we can see that it really dips out in January, right? There's hardly anything. But then we sort of get a peak at the end of the rainy season in October, and then a gradual decline until the new year. So here the peak was the dip was in 8th of January. Between December 9th and January 8th was really when vegetation dropped. Same here. So this gives you an idea of the growing season for this particular crop. Again, very useful when you want to get an idea for seasonal dynamics, agricultural changes. Super useful. And again, very easy. Also possible to export this data into CSV. So if you wanted to make this chart in Excel, it wouldn't be all that complicated. So this is the NDVI. Now we're going to go to the last part, which is to do show the changes in water. I'm going to show you the changes in a river going from the wet season to the dry season. So again, I'm biased towards places I know, so we're going to do Gao. And here we are, Gao in northern Mali. And we are going to do a search. So here I want to see, let's go 2019. I want to see the peak of the wet season. I want to see what the river looked like there. So for me, that's going to be around October. So around the first week of October. So let's do 2019 October 5th to 2019 October 10th. And then here we go. Again, this is the part where you would fast forward. And then here we are. Now, remember, NDVI, what we showed you last time, was for vegetation. But we also have NDWI, which is like the same thing, but for water. This really neat function manages to color all of the water pixels blue. Super useful when you want to see what the extent of water. So here we are, NDWI in the rainy season, in the peak of the rainy season. Let's do a compare. So I'm going to add this to compare, and we're going to do another one where we're going to see in the wet season, or sorry, in the dry season. So we're going to see how it looks during the dry season, when there's a lot less water. No, sorry, I think I'm going to do it a little bit later. Here we go. So we can already tell it's a lot, the river banks are a lot thinner. So again, here we are, comparison dry season. This is May 15th, when the river's at one of its lowest points. And then this is the wet season, when the river's at its highest. So this is October 9th, May 12th, in the same year. We can also do a time lapse for this period. So I'm going to do 1 week per month, and we can make a GIF or GIF, or I don't know how you pronounce it. So here we go. And we're going to search, so we can make a time lapse. Here what we'll do is we'll reduce the cloud coverage. So let's just say keep it to below 20%. And we're going to do 1 year. Let's do January 1st, 2019 to January 1st, 2020. Okay? And let's keep it at 1 image per week. And here, it basically creates a time lapse for us. So I'm going to change the speed, make it 3 frames per second. And it's got the date up here, so you can see how the river's changing. Again, super useful if you want to track the flow of a river, lakes, what have you. Very useful. You can download it also as well. So if you want to share it or put it on a website somewhere, you could download it. Likewise, it's possible to download the images themselves. So if you wanted to take this and open it in a GIS desktop software, you could download it here. And yeah, I think this is these are the extent of the 3 things I wanted to show you. Oh, one last thing, there's also a scene classification map, which is super useful. It's a product. Oh, doesn't seem to be able to work now. The scene classification map as well is a nice little tool. It basically provides you a very quick land cover analysis. So it shows you what's vegetation, what's bare, what's water. Again, very useful. So I think that I've talked long enough. That's about 20 minutes, so I think closer to 25 minutes. I'd be really interested to hear what your questions are, and I think we can maybe open it up to the Q&A portion. So yeah, once again, thank you.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much. We have several questions, and I'll start from the beginning. Janet asked a question of how does the 10-meter resolution to Sentinel compare with the imagery used in the tasking manager?
Yes, the OSM tasking manager. So yeah, for Sentinel II, you would not be able to use Sentinel II imagery for OpenStreetMap. For OpenStreetMap, you need much higher resolution. So the imagery you get in the tasking manager is going to be much higher resolution, probably less than 50 centimeters. So the resolution here is 10 meters. The resolution in the tasking manager is 50 centimeters. This Sentinel II is really much more adapted to environmental analyses rather than OpenStreetMap kind of activities.
Thanks, Alex. Okay, we've got a few more questions. Janet, think your question on the image data selection by percent cloud was answered, but if not, please feel free to speak up. Everyone, you now have the ability to unmute yourselves. So we've got about 5 questions. Before you do that, our next question, what's the dimensions of a pixel on the ground for Sentinel II?
It is 10 meters. So
You just answered that, yeah.
yeah, so it's an important point of clarification. You know, when we say 10-meter resolution, that means that each pixel is 10 meters. So that's to say that you can't really see anything less than 10 meters. So I'll show you an example here. If you zoom in, you can really see where the limits are. Okay, it's a little slow. So here, this is Gao, right? So I'm going to zoom into this part of the airport here. So I can see the runway nicely, but now we're getting to this part of it where it's really getting a little more difficult to be able to distinguish individual features. So you know, you can really see it starts to get pixel, and you can really see the outlines of each individual pixel. So this really gives you an example. This really gives you an idea of what you should be using Sentinel II for, I think.
Thank you. And our next question is more of a request, but they're asking if you could give a short detail or overview of bands in Sentinel II. They use Landsat frequently, but there are a beginner Sentinel II product.
Yeah, so for that, actually, I would refer you, so you can look at the bands here. You can play with the bands individually for Sentinel II, but there is actually a lot of documentation on the Sentinel Hub website that gives a really good outline of each band that I think does a better job than I could. So I would recommend going through that, actually, because they do it justice more than me.
Okay, thanks, Alex. And we've got a few more questions. Can you load a Polygon Shape as a mask to conduct an NDVI analysis instead of drawing one?
Let's see. Yes, you can. So you can upload a KML, GPX, or GeoJSON. So if you have a shapefile in QGIS, you can save it as any one of these 3, and then upload it for your NDVI analysis.
Great. Can we download all the bands, or will it allow us to download RGB only? Does it do it the unsupervised classification only here?
You can download the bands from here. This is not, if you want the raw Sentinel II imagery, I don't recommend using Sentinel Hub for that. If you want to use this data for visual purposes, for instance, if you want to download this and use this as a base map in QGIS, I think it's great. Maybe someone from Sentinel, from Synergize would correct me on this. I don't use this software to download the actual the bands. I use the semi-automatic classification plugin for QGIS to download the bands. I think that I find that I can get, when I want the raw data for Sentinel II, that's what I use. This gives you RGB images typically. So I would use an external source, either the Sentinel Sci-Hub, which you can find and access publicly, or the semi-automatic classification plugin on QGIS. That's what I would use to download the images. For this, I would use this if you wanted to download an RGB.
Thanks, Alex. And we've got another question on what is the best way to identify different types of vegetation?
That's a very good question. Unfortunately, I don't think I can answer that because there's been a lot written, I think, about how to do classification by people much smarter than me and much more talented than me. So unfortunately, it's a bit too broad and I think out of my expertise to answer what would be the best way to identify types of vegetation. I'm sorry, but again, um, I'm happy to exchange by email if you have specific questions on that as well.
Okay, we have another question on, is it possible to make a key when creating a GIF or GIF video?
I'm afraid I don't know what you mean by a key.
That was from a regional ambassador, Chamba. Do you want to unmute yourself and explain the question a little more if you can?
All right, thank you. I was thinking like, show how if you saw we saw the vegetation part, where for example, if I want to, let me say, the issue of buildings, how the buildings and the vegetation have been changed during the past years. So can you say the green ones are the vegetation, and then maybe the brown one are the buildings?
I see. Yes, yes. Unfortunately, you can't do that in the GIF. You can. The only way I think you could do that is if you were to download the GIF, put it into some editing software. There's a lot of free editing software you can use, and you have to unfortunately make it yourself. You have to make the legend yourself and then put it in with the editing software. I don't think there's a built-in function to be able to do that here in Sentinel Hub. That's a good question, though.
Thanks, Chamba. Okay, we have another question about, can the scene selection classification map calculate the area of each group?
To my knowledge, no.
Okay, that was quick.
That said, there is a possibility to do custom scripts. I don't know if there's something that could be done in a custom script, but if any of you are particularly talented with Python, you can basically get Sentinel Hub to do whatever you want with a Python script. They also have a script contest, so you get money and an enterprise membership if you win the script contest. So, that sounds like the kind of thing that maybe could be used in the script contest. So if you have an idea about how to do that, I think you should totally enter that contest.
Awesome, thanks, Alex. Okay, we have another question about, what is the approximate accuracy of the classification data?
I do not. I have no idea. I think, so it says here, scene classification was developed to be used in the Sen2 core project in the atmospheric correction module to distinguish between cloudy pixels, clear pixels, water pixels. It does not constitute a land cover classification map in a strict sense. So it's not a land cover map. It's just a very rough approximation. So there isn't really an accuracy assessment or any possible accuracy, since it's not a land cover or land use map.
Okay, thank you. And correct me if I'm wrong, but our next question is, I was wondering if it's possible to classify the vegetation. I mean, to say tree, grass, or even the kinds of vegetation. And you said that that's not possible from your knowledge right now, right?
Yeah, you cannot do classification in Sentinel Hub. It's not possible. If you wanted to do classification in a cloud-based system, I would recommend using Google Earth Engine. That's far more adapted to doing classifications than Sentinel Hub.
Okay, thank you. And our next question is, does it auto-generate a legend after processing the imagery?
No. I mean, there's a legend here for the pre-made ones. So like, for instance, NDVI, it gives you a legend in the window. But I suppose, yeah, if you were to do the custom script, you could probably figure out a way to do your own legend if you programmed it yourself.
Okay, thank you. And Tommy, did you want to clarify that question anymore? It was from Tommy Charles.
It's okay, it's okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our next question, is there any option to get or visualize SAVI or EVI? I'm not, indecisive also? It's a phone number? Okay, go ahead, great, you understand the question.
Yep, yeah, SAVI, Soil Adjusted Vegetation Index. Yes, you can actually. You have to use a custom script for that. But if I do custom scripts Sentinel Hub. So here for Sentinel II, it allows you to do a, you can basically cut and paste the script. What it is, okay, show script. Actually, I think they even have it. They have a link, Sentinel Playground. This is Sentinel Playground is, it's kind of like the EO browser that we were using, but it's a little different. So here, this is a soil-adjusted vegetation index map. And basically, all you have to do is you have to cut and paste the code into the window here. So it's very difficult to get the Sentinel Hub to. It's very difficult to get the zoom to work because every time I want to shift tabs, it has to change. So here, if I do the custom script here, so yeah, you can do it. Again, this is an example of how custom script works, but you absolutely can. And I definitely encourage you to look at the custom scripts and find one that suits your needs.
Thanks, Alex. We have another question about the resolution differing at different places. I believe this is Janet Chapman, and she's searching in Western Tanzania, and she's not getting clear pictures of buildings or fields. So the question is, does the resolution differ at different places?
The resolution is going to be 10 meters. So you're not, I mean, unless you're looking at very large buildings, you're not really going to be able to get clear images of very large buildings anywhere. And again, these have to be enormous buildings. You know, you can visualize an airport, but fields you're not going to be able to because, you know, since the individual pixel is 10 meters, that's unfortunately, I think, too coarse for what you're trying to do.
Thanks. And we have another question is, if the search result doesn't show any results, does it mean there's no imagery of the area?
If you are searching for a too specific period, so like for instance, if I'm only searching May 5th, 2019, there's nothing. It means there was no image from that date. You know, but if I expand my search a little bit, then I will be able to usually get something. But yeah, that if nothing comes up, it means that there's nothing within the criteria that you've selected.
Okay, and our final question right now is, can we distinguish bare rock from bare soil? Again, feel free to unmute yourselves, ask the question, or put the question in the chat. Oh, we have another question. But Alex, again, the question is, can we distinguish bare rock from bare soil?
That sounds like a land cover question, and I think that, yes, I don't think that this is really the apt tool for this because I don't think that this tool is the most adapted for land cover analysis. So maybe, but I've never used it to distinguish bare rock from bare soil.
Okay, and a similar question, can we see soil or land surface temperature, or do we need another Python code?
I'm unaware of I'm unaware of this being able to show temperature. I mean, not through Sentinel II, anyhow. Maybe with another sensor, but you can see there's a moisture index, but I don't think that there's I don't know how. I don't think there's a temperature option.
Okay, thank you, Alex. And again, I believe that answered all the questions in the chat. If we missed your question, please type it again and we will go back to it, and we'll give a few minutes for anyone to ask any questions aloud right now.
Hey, Rory here. I'd like to ask a question. So Alex, it seems like you did a lot of Googling for like custom scripts and things like that. So if there's some type of remote sensing type of challenge that we've seen done somewhere else or with different sensors, are you pretty confident that if we like just Google for it, we'll be able to find if there's something similarly done for Sentinel?
That's a really good question, Rory. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've pretty much, yeah, I find myself Googling for these sorts of things pretty much every day. So I think, yeah, if you have a specific question for Sentinel Hub, I mean, specifically, if you have a specific question about the Sentinel II satellite, then absolutely Google it. That's pretty much, yeah, if it wasn't for that, I don't think I would actually have a career.
Thank you.
This is Janet Nakoni. Thanks so much for this presentation. It's been really, really interesting and really helpful. I just had a clarifying question about downloading. So if I understand right, we can use this tool to also download the imagery that we've loaded onto the screen. Is that correct?
100%.
Okay, great.
You have an account, and there's the button here on the right-hand side that allows for the downloading.
Perfect. And then, so to answer maybe Helen's earlier question about calculating the surface area, Helen, you know, it seems like you could probably download the classified data that is, you know, generated. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, classified data, because you were saying it's not actually generating a classification, but then you could calculate the surface area of those different classes, you know, within QGIS, for example.
100%. And I would, I mean, again, I would really focus on, if you were to download this data from here, I would really use it for visual purposes only. If you were to do something like calculating surface area, I think it would be probably more efficient to calculate it using the raw imagery of Sentinel II. So either doing it through Google Earth Engine if you don't want to have to download it because it's already all there, or downloading it into QGIS and then, you know, running whatever workflow you like in QGIS. That's how I would do it.
Great, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, we have another question on, so the downloaded images from EO browsers will have reference coordinates / projections with them?
Yes, they are georeferenced. You just have to make sure that if you have to select the analytical option, and then here you want to do TIFF, and you can select your coordinate system. It's either 3857 or 4326. And then here you can also select different bands, visualized images. Oh, and of course, the resolution itself you can pick. But yeah, you can plug it right into QGIS.
So as of right now, we don't have any other questions. Would anyone like to share how they plan to use this tool in a project in the future? Maybe Alex, if there's a project you're working on right now you want to share, or any youth mappers out there, please share to give anyone new ideas.
Yes, I'd love to hear if anyone has any ideas.
This is Janet. I really like that NDVI tool and the fact that you can upload your own shapefile. So I do some work in the Congo, and I have, for example, a shapefile of, you know, ground truth GPS outlines of farms. And we're looking at comparing how agricultural production might vary between farms that we've provided agricultural assistance to versus ones that we haven't. So I think this tool could be really useful to look at some of the ways the NDVI might be changing over time for those different sets of farms.
Hi, this is Janet Chapman from Tanzania Development Trust. That sounds fascinating, other Janet, because we would like to do very much the same thing in Tanzania to compare agricultural input. So maybe we can, I'm sure you're a lot further on, so it would be great to connect with you and find out more.
Sure, that would be great. It's funny that there are two Janets. That's very rare. Nice to meet you.
You too.
Great. Yeah, those sound like really good use cases for this, I think. And I think, yeah, I would definitely encourage playing around, seeing what happens when you upload the shape files, seeing how the visualization looks. Definitely, I think it's a really solid idea.
Alex, I have a quick question, Rory again. I wonder if you or maybe anyone else on this call know of any uses of using Sentinel to detect crop damage, specifically around desert locusts in East Africa.
That's an excellent question. I am sure that it's been done, and I'm sure that there's probably been quite a few applications of it. I haven't tried it yet, so I have not specifically tried to use Sentinel II imagery to monitor crop degradation or crop loss. So I can't tell you anything specifically about how it's done. But I'm sure that it has been done. I also know that a lot of people have researched that using radar data rather than optical, which is what we have here. Sentinel I is a very good source of radar data, and you can actually load Sentinel I data in Sentinel Hub. It's just a little more complicated, and I'm not really an expert at radar data, so unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to tell you about that. But yeah, I'd recommend seeing, Googling it, seeing who has done, crop damage assessments with Sentinel II, and I think you'd probably find some interesting stuff.
Thank you so much, Alex, and thank you, Rory, and thank you to both Janets for sharing. We just have a few more minutes left on the webinar, so again, feel free to pose any questions in the chat or speak aloud. I included the YouthMappers website in the chat and then also the YouTube link, so this video will be posted shortly there so you can share it with your network. We'll end the session. If there aren't any more questions, we'll just wait a couple more minutes to make sure people aren't thinking through some questions. So again, thank you so much, Alex. This has been fantastic.
It's my pleasure. And again, I've got my contact information here, so please don't hesitate to reach out if you have individual questions that we're not covering here. I'm always available to talk about this kind of stuff. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you think of something after the session ends.
Thank you all so much for joining. Oh, someone has a question. Go ahead. Is that Alex?
Oh, no, that was just me unmuting, I think.
Okay. Well, I was going to say we'll go ahead and end the session if there are no more questions. But Alex, did you have final comments?
No, I really appreciate the excellent questions we had. And yeah, I'm glad we had the opportunity to do this. So thank you all for coming and for listening. Really appreciate your presence.
Okay. Thanks everyone for joining. Happy mapping.